Have you ever thought about how long a single second can feel? 1 second can save you, or destroy everything you've built. I never believed that, not until it happened to me. I was just a regular guy, an NBA timekeeper, sitting courtside, hand hovering over a small red button, watching legends turn moments into history. One press, and the whole game could change. But that night in Phoenix, I pressed it a little too early. And that 1 second flipped my entire life upside down. Welcome to Hidden Truths, True Stories, where we tell the stories the world never heard. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to like this story, because tonight's story isn't just about basketball. It's about pressure, fear, and conscience. There's a rule in the NBA called the continuation rule. It sounds simple, but hidden inside it is a loophole, where time itself can be cheated. If a player drives to the basket right before a foul, and the timekeeper hesitates, even for half a breath, those tenths of a second can disappear. Fans never notice, but sometimes, those missing seconds decide who gets the trophy and who walks away forgotten. That night, my coach leaned over and whispered, "Freeze it if he drives, man. We need that foul before the horn." I looked at him, then at the clock to 1.3 seconds left. The crowd was losing its mind, and my heart was pounding harder than the noise around me. I hesitated, and then I pressed the button. The arena exploded. Fans screamed, players hugged, coaches celebrated. And me? I just sat there in silence. Everyone shouted, "We did it." But in my head, one voice whispered, "Did we really?" After the game, champagne sprayed across the locker room. Laughter filled the air, but I couldn't join in. I sat outside in the hallway, back against the cold concrete wall, listening to the echoes fade in and out. Each sound felt heavier than the last. People think cheating's about money, fame, or power. It's not. Sometimes it's just fear. Fear of letting down the people who believe in you. The next morning, the papers called it a miracle win. TV replayed the final shot over and over. Slow motion, bright lights, wild cheers. And I just stared at that 1 second, the one that shouldn't have existed. The truth is, I didn't stop the clock. I stopped time. For everyone, except myself. And time, man, time always finds a way to settle its score. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that clock, 1.3 seconds frozen in red light, mocking me. It was just a game, right? That's what I kept telling myself. But deep down, it didn't feel like a win. It felt like something had broken, something I couldn't fix. The next morning, the world was already moving on. Sports channels were calling it one of the greatest finishes of the decade. Commentators replayed the shot from every angle, slow motion, dramatic music. Fans screaming like they'd witnessed a miracle. Nobody noticed the half-second that didn't belong. Nobody saw me in the corner of the screen, fingers still hovering over the button. I watched the broadcast like a ghost watching his own crime replay on TV. At work, the guys were high-fiving me. "You saved that game, man. We made history," one of them said. I forced a smile, but it felt heavy. I wanted to tell someone, to say, "No, I didn't save it, I changed it." But who wants to hear the truth when everyone's celebrating the lie? For the next few days, the guilt followed me like a shadow. In the grocery store, in traffic, at night when the house was quiet. Every little beep, the microwave, the alarm clock, the elevator timer, it all sounded like that buzzer from the arena. I started waking up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, sweat on my face, like time itself was chasing me for what I did. A week later, my coach called. He was still riding the high from the win. "We did it, man," he said. That second was everything. I wanted to tell him that it was more than a second, that it was the line between right and wrong. But I didn't. I just said, "Yeah, coach, we did it." After that call, I sat at my kitchen table for hours, staring at the ticking clock on the wall. Each tick sounded louder, sharper, like it knew something I didn't want to admit. That's when it hit me. I hadn't just stolen time from the game. I'd stolen peace from myself. People say time heals everything. Maybe they're right. But what if the thing you broke was time itself? What if every minute that passes just reminds you of the 1 second you shouldn't have touched? That night, I poured myself a drink, turned off the lights, and sat in the dark. The world outside was quiet, too quiet. And for the first time, I realized silence can scream louder than any crowd. A few days later, I thought maybe the guilt would fade. Maybe if I just went back to work, followed routine, smiled at the right people, the voice in my head would quiet down. But the thing about guilt is, it doesn't disappear. It just learns how to whisper. It started small. A reporter from a local paper showed up at the arena before a game. She was young, sharp, the kind of person who notices things other people miss. She smiled and said, "Hey, you were on the table during that Phoenix game, right?" "Yeah," I said. trying to keep it casual. She nodded. Crazy finish. Did you notice anything weird about the clock? Social media is talking. Some fans think the timer froze for a second. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Just 1 second of hesitation. But in my head, alarms were blaring. I laughed it off. Nah. Must have been the camera angle, I said. She smiled politely, but her eyes said she didn't believe me. That look followed me for the rest of the night. During the next few games, I started noticing every little thing. Every time the clock flickered, every time the ref looked at the scorer's table, my chest tightened. I told myself I was imagining it. But paranoia moves quietly. It sits beside you, waits until you blink. Then it whispers, they know. The guys I worked with didn't notice. They were laughing, joking, talking about playoffs. But I stopped joining in. I'd stare at the scoreboard, wondering how many times I'd pressed that button without really thinking. 1 second, that's all it takes. 1 second to win. 1 second to lose everything. That night, I sat in my car after work for hours. The arena lights had gone out. The parking lot was empty, and the only sound was the ticking of my dashboard clock. Every tick felt like a heartbeat, steady, mocking, unstoppable. I pulled out my phone and watched the replay again. There it was, the drive, the foul, the buzzer, the celebration, and there I was, sitting behind the table, my hand moving a little too fast. It was barely noticeable, but once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. I told myself no one would ever care enough to dig deeper. It was just one game, 1 second, one mistake. But deep down, I knew that's how every secret starts. Small, quiet, harmless, until someone asks the right question. And that question had already been asked. By the next week, I'd convinced myself it was over. No one cared about one weird second in a long season. Games came and went, fans moved on, and the noise of new highlights buried what had happened in Phoenix. But guilt doesn't forget, it just waits for silence to fall. Late one evening, I was in the media room packing up cables. When the arena lights dimmed, the cleaning crew was gone, and the only light came from the screen showing post-game recaps. Then I heard it, my name. A sportscaster on TV was saying it. Timekeeper John Miller, the man behind the buzzer that saved the game. For a second, I froze. They'd never mentioned my name before. And now, there it was, echoing through an empty arena. My stomach dropped. That one line turned me from invisible to exposed. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text, unknown number. It said, "We both know the clock didn't stop on its own." I stared at the screen, my throat dry. No name, no context, just that line. I deleted the message, but the words burned in my mind like static. Someone knew. The next day, I saw her again, the same reporter. She smiled when she caught my eye. "Still sure it was just the camera angle," she said. I wanted to laugh it off again, but this time, my mouth stayed shut. She pulled out her phone and played a clip. "Watch the shot clock frame by frame," she said. And there it was, that flicker, the half-second where time hesitated. I felt my chest tighten. She looked at me and whispered, "Sometimes the truth is just a fraction of a second, isn't it?" I didn't answer. I just turned and walked away. But her voice followed me all the way down the hall. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the dark. The city lights outside blinked in rhythm with the guilt pounding in my chest. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that buzzer, short, sharp, final. People think sound fades with time. They're wrong. Some sounds live in your head forever, like ghosts that don't know they're dead. I thought about confessing, just walking into the team office and saying it out loud. But then what? Lose my job, my name, my career over a half second. So I told myself what liars always tell themselves. No one will ever find out. But the truth was already looking for me. 3 days later, the story went public. Not on TV, not on a big sports network, just a local blog at first. A small post buried under hundreds of headlines, but it had my name in bold. Timekeeper's split-second decision under review. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, reading it over and over. It wasn't a full accusation, not yet. It just asked questions about how the clock froze, why the replay angle didn't match the official time, why the continuation rule had been applied so loosely that night. But I knew what it really was, an invitation for the internet to eat me alive. By noon, the article had spread. People love a mystery, especially one they can tear apart. Forums, Twitter threads, fan pages. Everyone suddenly became a timekeeping expert. Some defended me, others called me a cheater. And the worst part, they weren't wrong. At work, no one said anything, but I could feel the difference. The same coworkers who used to laugh with me now avoided eye contact. My coach wouldn't even meet my eyes. The silence hit harder than words ever could. That night, the reporter called. Her voice was calm, polite, but sharp as glass. "I'm not trying to ruin your life," she said. "I just want the truth. Did you stop the clock early?" For a moment, I almost said yes. It would have been a relief, like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. But the fear hit harder. I hung up without saying a word. After that, things started falling apart fast. The team PR manager called me in. They said they were launching an internal review. Just procedure, they claimed, but I could see it in their faces. They already knew. I wasn't an employee anymore. I was a liability. That evening, I went for a walk downtown. The streets were loud, cars, laughter, music, but all I could hear was that damn buzzer. Every honk, every beat of a crosswalk light, sounded like it was counting down to something I couldn't stop. When I got home, I found another message waiting on my phone. Same unknown number as before. This time, it said, "You can hide from the reporter, but you can't hide from the tape." I stared at that message until the screen dimmed. It wasn't fear anymore. It was the sinking feeling of knowing the moment you've been dreading has already begun. People think truth comes crashing in like thunder, but it doesn't. Sometimes it just walks quietly into your life, sits down across from you, and waits for you to look up. I didn't go to work for the next 2 days. Told them I was sick, but the truth was simpler. I just couldn't face them. Every time I turned on the TV, the game replayed. Every time I opened my phone, my name was there, buried in the comments. 1,000 strangers arguing about a second I couldn't take back. By the third day, I knew I couldn't hide forever. I walked into the arena like a man walking into his own trial. People looked up from their desks when I passed by. Some nodded politely, others didn't bother. Even the janitor, who joked with me for years, just gave me a small, pitying smile. The PR manager called me into his office. "John," he said, "the league wants to review the footage themselves." I nodded, pretending to be calm. Inside, my stomach turned to stone. He sighed, leaned back, and said quietly, "If there's something you want to tell me, now's the time." I wanted to speak. God, I did. But my mouth betrayed me. I just said, the clock was fine. He didn't believe me. Nobody did. That night, I drove home in silence. The city lights blurred through the windshield, like time itself was smearing in front of me. I kept hearing her voice, the reporter's. Sometimes the truth is just a fraction of a second. She was right. When I got home, I found another message waiting on my phone. No number again, just a video link. My thumb hovered over it for a long time before I finally pressed play. It was the broadcast angle. But this time, someone had slowed it down frame by frame. The final drive, the foul, the horn. And then, clear as day, my hand pressing the button before the clock hit 0. I felt my chest cave in. There it was, proof. Cold, mechanical, undeniable. I don't know how long I sat there staring at that frozen frame. The comments underneath were brutal. Some called me a cheat, others called me a disgrace. A few even said I'd ruined the integrity of the sport. And for the first time, I couldn't argue with any of them. It's strange, when you make a mistake, you think you'll have time to fix it before anyone finds out. But when the truth finally comes, it doesn't give you time to breathe. It just stands there, quiet and steady, waiting for you to admit what you did. I shut my phone off, but the image stayed burned behind my eyes, my own hand, frozen mid-press. I realized I wasn't running from the reporter, or the league, or the fans. I was running from that second, the one I'd stolen, the one that was finally coming back for me.
The email came early that morning. Subject line, league investigation, mandatory appearance. It didn't say much, just a date, a time, and a conference room number. But that was enough to make my hands shake. I knew what it meant. The lie I'd been carrying was about to be dragged into the light. When I got to the arena, the air felt different, colder, like everyone knew something, but no one would say it out loud. The same hallway I'd walked 1,000 times now felt foreign, like the walls were whispering about me. I passed a few co-workers. Their small talk stopped mid-sentence. Someone coughed. Someone looked away. And for the first time, I realized I was no longer one of them. I was the story. The room was small. 2 league officials, my coach, and the PR manager sitting with his hands folded tight. They didn't start with questions. They started with the footage. They played it on a big screen. Every frame slowed down until the truth couldn't hide anymore. I sat there watching my own hand move too soon. The button light flicker before the whistle blew. Every tick felt louder than the last. When it ended, the room was quiet. The older official leaned forward and said, "Mr. Miller, we've reviewed the footage from multiple angles. Do you have any explanation for the discrepancy?" My throat went dry. My mind scrambled for words that wouldn't come. Finally, I said, "The system glitched. It wasn't me." Even I didn't believe it. They didn't either. My coach looked away. He didn't say a word, but I could feel his disappointment. The kind that cuts deeper than anger ever could. This was the man who'd trusted me. who'd told me to freeze the clock that night. And now he was letting me take the fall. After the meeting, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, trying to remember how everything had gone so wrong. It had started as loyalty, just one favor for the team. But loyalty, when built on lies, always turns to poison. By evening, the story had exploded again, this time on national sports channels. NBA investigating game clock controversy. My name wasn't mentioned yet, but it didn't need to be. Anyone who'd seen the tape knew exactly who was behind that button. I turned off the TV and sat in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the wall clock above me. Every sound reminded me of time, and how I'd messed with something you're never supposed to touch. People chase control their whole lives. But the truth? Control is an illusion. The moment you try to own time, time starts owning you. By the next morning, my phone was a graveyard of missed calls and messages. Old friends, reporters, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone suddenly wanted a piece of the story. The investigation hadn't gone public officially yet, but someone inside the league had leaked it. And in the age of the internet, leaks spread faster than truth ever can. The first headline hit before breakfast. Did the timekeeper steal the game? I remember staring at it, still half asleep. Coffee cooling in my hand. There was my name in bold again, next to the word cheater. By noon, the sports talk shows had picked it up. Some hosts joked about it. Others called it the biggest scandal since the referee fixing games in '07. Every word felt like a punch. People I'd never met were calling me a disgrace, a fraud, a stain on the sport I'd loved my whole life. I didn't eat that day. Didn't go outside, just sat there, scrolling through comments, watching strangers pick my life apart one tweet at a time. It's weird. When the world turns against you, it doesn't sound like shouting. It sounds like silence. The kind that swallows every breath you take. That night, I tried calling my coach. He didn't answer. I left a voicemail. Coach, I never meant for it to go this far. But I knew he'd heard enough. Maybe he'd already decided it was easier to pretend I never existed. Then came the call from my mother. She'd seen the news. She tried to sound calm, but her voice cracked when she said my name. Tell me it's not true, Johnny. I couldn't lie to her. Not her, so I stayed quiet. And that silence told her everything. After the call, I sat on the floor beside the window. Outside, the city looked normal. Cars moving, lights flashing, people laughing somewhere far away, and for the first time, I felt completely disconnected from it all. Like the world was still moving forward, and I was stuck inside that 1 second, the second I'd stolen. When I finally turned the TV back on, a panel was debating my intent. Was it a mistake or was it deliberate? They argued about it for 20 minutes. And I realized something. The truth didn't even matter anymore. The story wasn't mine now. It belonged to the noise. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote down one sentence. I didn't cheat the clock, I cheated myself. Then I closed the notebook and stared at the ticking clock on the wall. Each second felt heavier, slower, like time was punishing me with every breath. The league called it a hearing, but it felt more like an execution. They set it for Monday morning, 10 a.m., inside a downtown office building where every wall was made of glass. Funny, right? Everything transparent, except the people sitting inside. When I walked in, cameras lined the hallway. Reporters shouting questions, flashes going off like lightning. John, did you cheat the clock? Was it a setup? Are you taking the fall for someone else? I didn't answer a single one. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't sound like a lie. Inside, the room was cold and quiet. A long table, 3 league officials. One of them read from a document without even looking at me. They talked about timing inconsistencies, procedural misconduct, and the integrity of the sport. All the right words for the wrong kind of man. When they finished, the head official looked at me. Do you have anything to say before we issue our ruling? For a moment, I thought about it. Thought about telling them everything. How it happened, why I did it. How that 1 second had haunted me every day since. But then I saw the cameras outside through the glass, the microphones waiting like vultures, and I realized it didn't matter. No one wanted the truth. They wanted a villain. So I said, no, sir. Just 2 words. And that was it. They suspended me indefinitely. No pay, no title, no future. Just a signature on a paper that erased 20 years of loyalty in 10 seconds. When I walked out, the reporters were still there, shouting, flashing, hungry for a quote. I kept walking. No answers, no excuses, just silence. The only thing I had left to give. Outside, the winter air hit hard. I pulled my jacket tighter, but it didn't help. It wasn't the cold that got to me. It was the emptiness. That hollow space inside where pride used to live. Back home, I turned on the TV out of habit. There it was. My own face, replayed on every sports channel in America. Some called me careless, others called me corrupt. They didn't see the man behind the mistake, just the story, the headline, the villain they could point at. Later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed, hands over my face, thinking about how 1 second could erase an entire lifetime. People say the truth sets you free, but they never tell you how much it costs. That night, I finally admitted it. Not to the cameras, not to the league, but to myself. I did it, and the clock I cheated had finally caught up to me.
The morning after my suspension, the world felt different. Quieter, like someone had turned down the volume on life. No calls, no emails, no noise. Just silence and the faint hum of a refrigerator that hadn't been cleaned in weeks. I didn't shave, didn't check the news, didn't even open the blinds. I just sat at the table, staring at the clock on the wall. The same clock that had once been background noise was now the only sound I could hear. Tick, tick, tick. Each one felt like a reminder. Time keeps moving, even when you're standing still. By noon, I gave in and turned on my phone. Hundreds of missed notifications, mentions, messages, strangers tagging me in memes. One said, "You ruined basketball." Another said, "How does it feel to cheat the system, loser?" I scrolled until I couldn't anymore, until the words started blurring together. Then, right between the hate and the noise, I saw a message that made my chest tighten. It was from her, the reporter, the one who had started all of this. She wrote, "You never told your side of the story. Meet me, one time." No cameras. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it. Another part, the part still craving some kind of redemption, couldn't stop reading it. I didn't reply, but her words stayed stuck in my head, repeating like an echo I couldn't mute. That night, I poured myself a drink and opened my laptop for the first time in days. The video of the game was still online. Millions of views now, hundreds of slow-motion analyses, every frame dissected by strangers. They didn't see what I saw though. They didn't see the fear behind that press, the pressure, the weight. They only saw the moment I failed. I closed the laptop, but the reflection of the paused video stayed on the dark screen. My face, lit by the frozen frame of the game that destroyed me. That's when I realized something. I hadn't just cheated the clock. I'd let it define me. The next morning, I woke up to another message. Same reporter. Just 3 words this time. "You owe yourself honesty." For the first time in weeks, I felt something shift. Not relief, not forgiveness, but maybe the smallest spark of courage. The kind that comes when you've already lost everything else. I didn't know it yet, but that message was about to pull me back into the one thing I thought I'd escaped. The truth. I met her 2 days later at a small diner off 7th Street, the kind of place where the air smells like burnt coffee and regret. She was already there when I walked in, sitting in a corner booth, a notebook open, no recorder in sight. When she looked up, there was no smugness in her eyes, just curiosity, maybe even something close to pity. "Thanks for coming," she said. I didn't answer, just slid into the booth across from her, hands wrapped around the edge of the table like I was afraid to let go. For a moment, we just sat there in silence, the clinking of cups and low chatter filling the space between us. Finally, she said, "You don't have to lie to me, John. I already know what happened. I just want to understand why." That word, why, hit harder than I expected. Nobody had asked that before. The league wanted facts, the fans wanted blood, but she wanted a reason. And the truth was, I didn't even know anymore. I took a deep breath. "It wasn't supposed to be like that," I said. She leaned in. "Then how was it supposed to be?" So I told her about the coach's whisper, the pressure, the adrenaline, the feeling that if I didn't do it, I'd let the whole team down. How 1 second of hesitation felt like a lifetime of judgment. She listened quietly, writing nothing down. When I finished, she said softly, "You didn't do it for yourself. You did it for them." I laughed bitterly. Yeah. And now them doesn't even return my calls. For the first time since that night, I felt something lift, not forgiveness, but the relief of finally saying it out loud. It was strange how confession didn't make me weak. It just made me human again. She looked at me for a long time, then said, "You know, people don't really hate you. They just need someone to blame. That's what sports do. They make heroes and villains. But sometimes, both live in the same person." Her words hit deep. I didn't know whether to thank her or cry. I just nodded, staring at the steam rising from my coffee cup. When we left, she didn't ask for a quote, didn't pull out her phone. She just said, "You'll never outrun the story, John, but maybe you can own it now." I watched her walk away into the busy street, her notebook tucked under her arm, and for the first time in months, the ticking in my head went quiet. Not gone, just quiet enough to breathe again. But peace never lasts long for people who've lied to time, and mine was about to run out. I thought meeting her would be the end of it. You tell your story, she writes it. The world moves on, that's how it's supposed to go, right? But life doesn't follow scripts. especially not when the story isn't yours anymore. 3 days after our meeting, her article went live. The title hit me first. 1 second too soon. The man who tried to save his team. Not cheater, not liar, not disgrace. It was almost human. She hadn't painted me as a villain. She'd painted me as a man caught between pressure and loyalty. At first, I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to be angry. She'd still written about me, still put my name out there for millions to see, but another part of me felt seen. For the first time since it all began, someone told my story, the way I actually lived it. The reaction online was different this time. Sure, some still hated me, but others said things like, maybe he just cracked under pressure, or the system pushed him too far. I wasn't forgiven, not by a long shot, but at least I wasn't a monster anymore. And that small shift, it mattered. That night, she called me. I hope I didn't cross a line, she said. I laughed quietly. No, you just told the truth. That's a rare thing these days. She paused for a second. Funny thing, she said. Truth and time, they both have a way of coming back. Then she hung up. Her words stuck with me all night. Truth and time, two things I thought I'd lost control of, now walking side by side, catching up to me again. The next morning, I stepped outside for the first time in weeks. The air was cold but clean. Neighbors still looked at me differently. Some nodded, some didn't, but I didn't care. For once, I wasn't hiding. But peace is fragile. By evening, my phone buzzed again. It was a message, same unknown number as before. This time it said, nice article, but you left something out. I froze, the blood drained from my face. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Someone else was still out there. Someone who knew more than both of us. I looked around my empty apartment. The shadows on the wall felt heavier now, like the walls themselves were listening. I deleted the message, but deep down, I knew it was useless. You can't delete the past. It just waits until you're ready to remember. I couldn't stop thinking about that message. Nice article, but you left something out. The words looped in my head like a broken song. Who was it? And what did they know that I didn't? At first, I told myself it was just another troll. People online love playing detective, especially when they can hide behind a screen. But then another message came in the next morning. Check the footage. 2 cameras. 2 clocks. My hands went cold. I'd seen the game tape 100 times. How could there be another angle? I clicked the link attached to the message, half expecting it to be some cruel joke. But when it opened, my stomach dropped. It wasn't the broadcast feed. It was internal security footage. From above the scorer's table, the angle showed everything. The court, the bench, and me. Only this time, there was something else. Someone standing behind me during that play. A man in a suit, headset on, leaning over my shoulder just before I pressed the button. I paused the video, zoomed in. The face wasn't clear, but I recognized the stance, the shape, the jacket color. It was my coach. My heart was pounding now. That same voice, the whisper I'd heard before the foul. It wasn't just a suggestion. He'd been right there, watching, making sure I did it. I felt sick. All this time, I thought I'd acted alone. I thought I was the one who'd lost control. But what if it wasn't my decision at all? What if I was just a piece in someone else's game? I replayed the clip again and again, until the sound of the buzzer became unbearable. That 1 second, it wasn't just about loyalty anymore. It was about manipulation, control, power. By the evening, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I called the reporter. When she picked up, I didn't even say hello. I just said, he was there. The coach, he was right behind me. She went quiet for a moment, then said, send me the video. Right now. I did. And when I heard her breath catch on the other end, I knew she believed me. But believing and proving are two different things. John, she said quietly, if this is real, you're not the only one they'll come for. That night, I sat in the dark again, the glow of my laptop the only light in the room. I didn't know what scared me more, the truth I'd just discovered, or what would happen if the world saw it too. For months, I'd been drowning in guilt, thinking I was the one who ruined everything. But now I realized, the game was bigger than me, and maybe I was never supposed to win it. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that clip. My coach standing behind me, his hand on my shoulder, the faint nod before I pressed the button. The more I replayed it, the more I realized that second didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to him, to the system, to the lie that made me their scapegoat. By morning, I'd sent the video to the reporter. She called immediately. This changes everything, she said, her voice shaking. If we publish this, it won't just be about you. It'll be about the entire organization. I could hear the fear in her tone, the kind that comes when you know you're touching something dangerous. Do it, I said. I'm done hiding. She hesitated. Once this goes live, there's no turning back. I know, I said, but the truth deserves to be louder than the lie. Hours passed in silence. I stared at my phone, waiting for her message, the one that would mean it was out, that finally, people would know what really happened that night. But instead, a different message came through. Article delayed. Legal threats from the league. My stomach dropped. Of course they'd try to stop it. Power never lets truth walk freely. It cages it, buries it, smothers it under contracts and fear. By afternoon, the reporter called again. They sent me a cease and desist, she said. They're threatening to pull my credentials, maybe even sue. Are you backing down? I asked. She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, no, but I need to be smart about how we release this. That's when I realized something terrifying. I wasn't the only one they could silence. They could take her job, her name, her safety, just like they'd taken mine. That evening, I drove to the arena. The place looked different now. Not like a stadium, but like a monument to lies. I stood outside, watching the lights flicker, listening to the faint echo of a game going on inside. Thousands of fans cheering for a system that didn't care about truth, only about winning. I thought about walking in, standing at center court, and shouting everything I knew. But that would have just made me look crazy. And maybe I was. When I got home, another message was waiting. This time it wasn't from her. It said, "You've said enough. Stop now for your own good." No name, no number, just a warning, or maybe a promise. I sat in the dark for hours, phone on the table, screen still glowing. For the first time since this began, I realized the truth wasn't the finish line. It was the fight itself, and I was already too deep to turn back. The message from the league sat on my phone all night, glowing like a warning light I couldn't switch off. Stop now for your own good. But what's good when your whole life's already gone? When your name's dirt, your career's dead, and your conscience won't let you breathe. That's not living. That's just surviving in slow motion. By sunrise, I made my choice. If they were going to silence the truth, then I'd help it scream louder. I called the reporter. Post it, I said. Even if it ends everything, post it. Her voice trembled, but it was steady enough to answer. Okay, but when this goes live, they'll come after both of us. Let them, I said. At least this time, I'll lose for the right reason. 2 hours later, the story dropped. No warning, no leaks, just a single headline that hit the internet like lightning. The second that was never meant to happen. The article had everything: the footage, the messages, the proof. It showed the coach standing behind me, his hand hovering over my shoulder. The moment that changed it all. The sound of the buzzer, the flash of the scoreboard, the truth, frame by frame. Within minutes, the world exploded. Sports networks cut into live coverage. Commentators argued. Fans demanded resignations. For the first time, I wasn't the only name in the headlines. The coach's name was right beside mine, and for a moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: relief. Not joy, not pride, just relief that the burden wasn't mine alone anymore. By nightfall, the league issued a statement. An independent review will be conducted. We take integrity seriously. The same words they always say when they're caught. But it didn't matter. The truth was out, and once the truth breathes, it doesn't die quietly. The reporter called me again that night. You did it, she said. I laughed, a tired, broken kind of laugh. No, I said. We just stopped lying. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something I'll never forget. You know, John, time has a funny way of forgiving those who finally face it. After the call, I stepped outside. The night air felt cleaner than it had in months. No noise, no cameras, just me and the sound of the city, alive, honest, real. I looked up at the sky and thought about that 1 second. The one I stole. The one that stole everything back. People think truth destroys lives. It doesn't. It just reveals who was really living a lie. And me? I learned something about time that night. You can stop the clock, but you can't stop what comes after. Weeks passed. No more cameras. No more questions. The league moved on just like it always does. New games, new headlines, new heroes to worship. But every time I walked past a sports bar or heard a crowd cheering from somewhere down the block, a part of me still froze. Not out of guilt anymore. Out of memory. Sometimes, I'd see that clip replayed on highlight reels about controversial finishes. The commentators spoke fast, laughing, like it was trivia. To them, it was just history. To me, it was everything. People think redemption comes with applause or forgiveness. It doesn't. It comes quietly, like the hum of a clock after you've turned the sound back on. You start hearing every second again, and you learn to live inside them, not run from them. I took a job outside of basketball. Nothing glamorous. Just fixing timing systems for high school games and small town tournaments. No crowds. no pressure, no million-dollar stakes, just kids chasing dreams that still meant something. And sometimes, when I press the start button, I still feel that old tremor in my hand. But now, I press it right on time. The reporter still messages me now and then. Her stories are bigger than ever, exposing the kind of truths most people are too scared to touch. She always signs off the same way. Don't forget, John, time forgives the brave. I don't know if she's right. When you face what you did, really face it, the world stops chasing you. You start walking beside it again. Last week, I found the old stopwatch they gave me on my first day as a league timekeeper. It still works. I reset it, press start, and just watched the seconds roll. Each click sounded like a heartbeat, steady, honest, alive. And I realized something simple. Time isn't my enemy anymore. It's my teacher. It doesn't erase what I did. It just keeps reminding me to keep moving forward, 1 second at a time, because the buzzer doesn't mean the end. It just means the game changes.
It's strange how life goes on, even when yours feels like it stopped. I still wake up early, the same way I did back when I had to be courtside by dawn. Old habits don't vanish, they just lose their purpose. Now I make coffee, open the blinds, and let the sunlight spill across a quiet kitchen. That doesn't ask questions or care who I used to be. The news barely mentions me anymore. I've become a footnote, one of those names buried in sports trivia. A scandal people remember halfway through an argument. Hey, wasn't there some timekeeper guy once who messed with a clock? Yeah, that guy was me. But the world forgetting you isn't as bad as you'd think. It's freedom. The kind that feels heavy at first, like you've been untied from something that once defined you. I spend most days fixing things now. Old-timers, scoreboards, electric stopwatches. The kind of machines nobody thinks twice about. Funny, right? After all that, I still work with time. Only now, it feels different. Time used to be my weapon. Now it's my reminder. Sometimes, a local coach recognizes me. They'll say, "You're that guy, right? The NBA clock dude?" I just nod. They'll laugh awkwardly, then change the subject. It doesn't bother me, because for once, I don't need to defend myself. The truth already did that for me. Every Friday night, I still watch the games. Same teams, same noise, same drama. But now I see it differently. I see the stress in the officials' faces, the small glances they share when pressure builds. People think the players carry all the weight. But sometimes, the heaviest burden sits behind the button. Last week, something happened that made me pause. A kid at a high school game. Nervous, first time keeping score. Froze when the buzzer sounded early. He looked terrified, like he'd just ruined everything. I walked over, told him, "Hey, don't worry. 1 second doesn't define you." He looked at me, confused, then smiled. And for the first time in years, I meant those words. The reporter sent me a message later that night. "Looks like your story's finally quieting down," she wrote. I replied, "Yeah, guess it's about time." She sent back a smile emoji, the digital version of peace between two people who went through hell for honesty. The world still spins, clocks still tick, and somewhere out there, another game is starting. But this time, I'm not part of it, and that's okay, because sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's just finally being free.
Years have passed since that night. The arena lights, the roar of the crowd, the heartbeat of the game. They all feel like another lifetime now. But even after all this time, there's one sound I still can't forget. That single sharp buzz that stopped the world for me. I'm older now. The mirror doesn't lie. More gray in my hair. More silence in my days. But peace, real peace, doesn't come easy. It comes in fragments. In moments where you finally stop fighting the past and just let it sit beside you. Every morning, I take a walk through the park near my apartment. Kids play basketball on a cracked court, their laughter echoing off the metal hoops. Sometimes I stop to watch. The way they play, wild, fearless, honest, reminds me of what the game was before money. Before pressure, before all of it. I don't tell them who I am. They wouldn't care, and that's the beauty of it. They're not chasing fame or stats. They're just chasing moments. The kind of moments that feel infinite until they're gone. One day, a kid missed a buzzer beater. the ball bouncing off the rim as time expired. He threw his hands in the air, frustrated, and I caught myself smiling, because I knew that feeling too well, that helplessness when time wins. He looked over and said, "Man, if I just had one more second." I nodded. "Yeah, that's all any of us ever want." He laughed, not knowing how much truth hid in those words. Sometimes at night, I still hear the crowd. Not the boos, not the cheers, just the sound of thousands of people holding their breath at once, waiting for what comes next. That's the sound of life, really. 1,000 hearts suspended in the space between action and consequence. I've stopped running from that 1 second. Now, I carry it with me. It reminds me that even the smallest choices can ripple through years, shaping the person you become. If I could go back, I wouldn't press that button any differently, not because it was right, but because it finally taught me what truth costs. And once you learn the price, you stop treating it like something free. The reporter and I still talk sometimes. She's moved on to bigger stories, but she always ends our calls the same way. Still counting seconds? And I tell her, no, just living them. Because that's what time is. Not an enemy, not a clock, not a curse. It's a reminder. Every second is a story. And mine just happened to start, the moment I thought it ended.
There's a strange kind of peace that comes when you stop measuring your life in seconds, when you stop waiting for time to fix you, and just start existing, imperfect, uncounted, and real. I used to think time was everything. Back then, my whole world fit into numbers. 1.3 seconds on the clock, 0.7 seconds before the whistle, hundreds of tenths that could make or break a legacy. I thought control meant power, but it wasn't power. It was fear wearing a stopwatch. Now, I don't even own a watch. I wake up when the sun hits the window. I eat when I'm hungry. I sleep when I can. There's something freeing about not racing the clock anymore, about letting life happen in its own rhythm. Sometimes, people recognize me, older fans, mostly. They'll pause and squint. "Hey, aren't you that guy? The timekeeper?" I smile and say, "Yeah, I was." Not defensive, not ashamed, just honest, because that's all I can be now, honest. One of them asked me once, "Do you ever miss it? The noise, the lights, the game?" I thought about it for a second and said, "Sometimes, but the noise outside was never as loud as the noise inside." He didn't get it. Maybe he didn't need to. I've learned that silence isn't empty. It's full of lessons, memories, voices that once screamed but now just hum softly in the background of your life. That silence has become my peace. I still keep that old red button. It sits on my desk, disconnected, harmless. Sometimes I catch myself staring at it, wondering what would have happened if I'd never pressed it. Then I remind myself, if I hadn't, I'd still be chasing the illusion that I was in control. And maybe I needed to lose everything to learn that control was never real to begin with. The reporter sent me her book last month. There's a chapter about me, the man who stopped time. It's strange seeing your life turned into words. But she got one thing right. She wrote, "He didn't stop time. He just made us realize how fragile it is." Sometimes, I read that line over and over. And for the first time, it doesn't hurt. It just makes sense. We all break time at some point, wishing for more, wasting it, freezing it, or trying to outrun it. But time doesn't need to be conquered. It just needs to be understood. I used to cheat the clock. Now, I just listen to it. And the truth is, it's not counting down anymore. It's counting forward. It's funny how life circles back. I started with time, chasing it, fighting it, trying to control it. And now, after everything, time is the only thing I've learned to respect. It doesn't hate you. It doesn't forgive you. It just keeps moving. And somehow, that's the most merciful thing of all. I've told my story a few times now. Sometimes to students who dream about working in the big leagues. Sometimes to people who made their own mistakes and never got to tell their side. Every time, I start with the same line. 1 second can change everything. And every time, I end it with this. But if you're lucky, you'll still have the rest of your life to learn from it. There's a high school near my apartment that invited me to talk last month. The gym smelled like sweat, dust, and teenage ambition. When I walked in, the scoreboard blinked, bright red numbers counting down to 0. The coach introduced me, and I told them about pressure, about choices, about how doing the wrong thing for the right reason still makes it wrong. They listened, not because I was famous, but because I was honest. Afterward, one kid stayed behind. He couldn't have been more than 16. He asked, "Do you ever wish you could go back and fix it?" I smiled. "No. I just wish I'd learned sooner that time doesn't need fixing." I did. He looked at me like he understood. Not the scandal, not the league, not the fame, but the truth behind it all. That time isn't something you beat. It's something you walk beside. Now, when I think about that night in Phoenix, I don't feel anger or shame anymore. I feel clarity. I see the lights, the faces, the noise, and then I see myself, a man caught between loyalty and fear, doing what he thought was right in a moment that would define him forever. But the thing about time is, it doesn't trap you in one moment unless you let it. You can relive it, rewrite it, or rise from it. It's your choice. I still have that old stopwatch on my desk, the same one from my first game. It's worn, scratched, and quiet now. Sometimes, I pick it up and press the button, just to hear the click. That tiny sound reminds me I'm still here, still counting, still learning, still alive. And maybe that's all any of us can hope for. Not to stop time, not to cheat it, but to finally make peace with it. Because no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, time will always move forward. And if you listen closely, you'll realize something beautiful. And so can you.